Hello, folks. I'm Eric Endlick, founder of Top College Consultants, and today we're talking about college readiness and transition for neurodivergent students, which is one of my favorite topics. You can see right there a QR code to our website, topcollegeconsultants.com, and there's my contact information as well, eric at topcollegeconsultants.com. So let's get started. And if you want to get a link to the slides and follow along on your computer and be able to click the links and whatnot, you can use that QR code to access the slides. So, what's Top College Consultants? Well, we are a nationwide group of educational consultants who help students with learning differences and emotional challenges, as well as neurotypical students with the whole process of applying to college. That includes deciding whether to take a gap year, figuring out how to spend that gap year, deciding what to do over the summer, finding colleges that have support programs and figuring out where a student is going to be best supported in college, building that college list, writing the essays, doing resumes if they want to have a resume, preparing for admissions interviews if that's applicable, and getting the applications complete and into college. And of course, part of that includes building a college list that will maximize financial aid and improve a student's chance of getting scholarships if that's important to them. That is a picture of one of my actual students, by the way. And these are photos of team members. We are scattered around the country. We have a variety of backgrounds, but we all share a passion for helping students, particularly those with learning differences, be successful in transitioning to college. If you're not already in our Facebook group and you are a parent of a college-bound student, I encourage you to join. You can see the link and you can see a QR code there to connect directly to the group. It is a great place for parents to support each other and provide resources to each other. And because there's now over 25,000 members, and no matter what the question is, there's usually another parent with some ideas for the parent who asks the question. We really pride ourselves on being neurodiversity affirming. What does that mean? It means that we celebrate our differences and that we believe that our differences benefit us and make us stronger. In other words, having a variety of students on a campus makes for richer conversations. I believe that we all have strengths that we can contribute. And many students that we work with have some other kind of belong to some other kind of minoritized group, either regarding their race or gender or economic status. And that's called intersectionality when students have more than one identity. So not all neurodivergent students are alike. And it's important to recognize that that can involve additional challenges. We also have a strengths-based model, so we're not focused on what's wrong with a student or what their symptoms are necessarily, but we're looking at what are their strengths and what is going to help them be successful in applying and transitioning to college. And we believe that the first person perspectives, that is the student's own story, the student's own experience, is going to be really important in their lives and in their application process too. We honor them, we empower them, we don't try to fix them. And, if there's different ways for them to communicate that they find helpful, we provide different options. So let's get right into it. What are the challenges in transition to college for neurodivergent students? So I like to say getting into college is the easy part, right? So we are so focused in our culture on what it takes to get in that I think we're not spending enough time thinking about what you need to do to get through college and to get out the other side. And a survey recently by a company called EAB found that almost a quarter of students, not just neurodivergent students, but students around the US, don't feel ready for college. And that QR code is a link to an article that I wrote called Getting into College is the Easy Part. So what does that mean? What is then is hard if it's not the process of getting in? Well, we like to distinguish between college capable and college ready. So if a student is taking challenging courses in high school. If they are doing well in high school with rigorous courses, that means honors, AP, IB, dual enrollment, whatever they might be at a particular high school, and they are getting good grades, there's a very good chance that they will be fine in terms of college level academics, that they are capable of the academics, handling the academics in college. But that doesn't mean that they are ready for college because that involves handling independence, unless a student is going to be living at home, say attending a nearby community college. If they're going to be living at college, there's a big leap in independence in a lot of ways. And so students need a variety of skills to make that transition or leap successfully. And I like to break it down to three main areas. One being self-awareness. That is, you got to know what your strengths are and what are the areas where you need help. So that could be, social issues, life skills, self-care skills, executive function, or organizational skills. And once you know where the areas are that you need help, of course, you can then advocate for yourself, whether it means, going to the counseling center or the disability center to set up appointments and utilize the resources that are available in college. Often students are used to having their parents set up their appointments in high school, having their parents sort of be on the front lines, advocating and interacting with staff, but that will change dramatically in college. In fact, frequently staff in college won't even speak to parents unless there is a release, and even then they might be reluctant. So it is expected that students are stepping up and advocating for themselves. And then finally, they need to be able to manage their time, maintain their motivation, manage habits like self-care, hygiene, gaming, internet use, social media, substance use, and their emotional reactions to disappointment or stress in college in order to get through. These days, mental health is a huge factor in for college students. So I mentioned self-advocacy. Why is self-advocacy in particular so important in college? It's because of the changes that take place going from high school to college. And part of that has to do with the laws. So the laws in high school emphasize success. It is incumbent upon the public high school district to identify disabilities and provide services to make sure that students are successful. Whereas in college, it is actually incumbent on the student to take the steps they need to access college. And so that means, again, seeking out the resources that are going to help them. It is not the college's responsibility to help students be successful. It is only their legal responsibility to provide access to the curriculum. And in high school, students' days tend to be very structured, whether it's class, homework, meals at home, sports practice, band practice, theater, test prep. It's a pretty full day, long school day, not so many hours of homework. Time, again, is very structured. And those supports that we talked about that you might get because you're on a special education plan, like a 504 or an IEP in high school, those are sort of delivered to students, and there's a lot of them. In college, it's almost flipped, where there aren't typically that many hours in class, but there's a lot more hours of assignments that students have to independently make sure that they get done. So the time is much less structured. And if students need support, they've got to take the steps to set them up. So how can students, what can we do to help students build self-advocacy while they're in high school? So it's a process of gradually, in a scaffolded way, gradually transferring responsibilities to students that may have been previously held by parents or other professionals in school or outside of school. That includes students making their own appointments, whether it's for a tutor or a therapist or a doctor or dentist, getting students used to setting those up and knowing when they need to make appointments, refilling their own meds, because again, if they go away from college to college and they're on meds and those meds have to be refilled monthly, they're going to have to do that themselves, doing their own laundry, thinking about nutrition, possibly meal preparation, waking up on time for class, going to bed early enough that you can wake up on time for class, managing money, and communicating with staff, initially in high school and then later on in college. So having those conversations that parents may be used to taking the lead on. And again, this is a gradual process. So parents can look for ways to sit down with their kids and say, hey, this is how I make appointments for you. This is how I get in touch with your teacher. This is how you do laundry. Now let's see, have you do it, and I'll, oversee it and make sure it's, and give you feedback if you have any questions. So, what are some ways that students can build skills? There's kind of three points in time where they can build skills. The first is while they're still in high school. And we love starting to work with students in ninth grade, 10th grade, where there's a longer runway, longer period of time that they can build skills before they're going to start college. They can get the help of a counselor in school, a private therapist, an academic or executive function coach. That's something you would typically have to hire on your own and pay for out of pocket. Finding courses that are going to teach life skills like personal finance, super helpful course, in my opinion, during high school. And potentially going to a summer program that specifically focuses on building college readiness skills for students with learning differences. And we know of lots of these programs. Many of our students go to these programs. So I mentioned, there's 3 points in time. One is building these skills while you're in high school. The next would be building skills between high school and college. And that's typically called a gap year or sometimes a PG or post-grad year. So why consider a gap year? Well, there's at least 6 good reasons. And if you look at the QR code, that is a link to an article on this topic that I wrote. Studies suggest that students who take a gap year, take a year off from before college, are more motivated and are more likely to persist and graduate on time in college. They have higher grades. They're more clear on what they want to do because they've had more time to think about it. They've also had another year for their brain to develop and their brain to mature, which is really important because our students frequently struggle with, again, executive function, planning, organization, time management, impulse control. And one more year of development helps the parts of the brain that manage executive function be more developed and more, adult-like. They also have more time during gap year to work on their academic skills and their life skills to be successful in college. And depending on what they do during that gap year, they may be in a stronger position to apply to college if they haven't already applied. Maybe they're doing some sort of project or job that is going to make, or taking courses that is going to sort of burnish or improve their application. So what does a gap year mean? What do students do during a gap or a PG year? They can do any number of things. They can get a job. They can start their own business. And in fact, I've seen lots of teens who did run their own business, believe it or not. Could be, yard work, could be babysitting, dog walking, lots of things students can do, baking. They can develop some sort of independent project. Maybe if they're into tech, they're building websites or apps. They can do volunteer work or community service, or they can enroll in a college readiness program, again, for neurodivergent students that will help specifically build the skills they need to be successful in college. So we talked about building skills in high school during gap year. Now let's talk about what they can do while they're in college to continue to build those skills and become successful. What are the kinds of support you can get in college? Well, many of us like to break it into sort of roughly 3 levels. The first level, as I think about it, would be the basic level that is required by federal law in the US, and that is disability accommodations. If you need extra time on tests, testing in a distraction-reduced environment, being able to sit in the front row, bring your laptop to class, get a copy of the professor's notes, whatever that might be, all colleges, for the most part, can provide those accommodations, but that's just the basic level. The next level would be to provide some additional services. A common one would be academic coaching or maybe peer mentoring. And academic coaching is like executive function coaching. It tends to be called academic coaching in college. That service may or may not be at an additional cost. And then the highest level of service would be a more robust, comprehensive learning support program that has multiple different components. That could certainly include executive function or academic coaching, could include peer mentors, social events, workshops, priority registration. It may have a whole bunch of components. Students may be able to get support throughout college, or it might just be for the first year. Sometimes there's a summer bridge program before college starts too. Often there's an additional fee for these support programs. If it's an autism support program specifically for autistic students, there's usually a social component. And we have, if you're wondering, like, where are these colleges? Which colleges provide these additional services? Well, I've done the legwork for you, creating a database of over 200 colleges that have additional supports. I call them neurodiversity-friendly colleges. And you can either click on the link or scan the QR code to get directly to that database. Because it's a database, it is sortable. And frequently, folks want to sort it by state because maybe you're only looking for programs in a particular state, Texas or Massachusetts or New York, California, whatever it might be. You can sort it by state and zoom in, hone in on the colleges in that location that have support programs. Again, most of them charge an additional fee. Some of them do not, though, which is wonderful. Other ways to build skills in college, in addition to the support program that may help you learn the skills. Some colleges have some sort of wellness community. It might be, for example, a separate part of the residence hall where students have committed to being substance-free. Maybe there's a yoga room, maybe there's meditation classes, or some sort of community support there to be mentally healthy. You can, of course, get mental health counseling, which is frequently free and available at college. There may be limits on the number of sessions available, but check that out. Most colleges offer that. There's usually a variety of advisors that a student has access to, their academic advisor, career counselor, et cetera, RAs in the residence hall. Tutoring, certainly. Frequently there's free peer tutoring available in college, and sometimes tutoring available by professionals as well. And of course, you can hire your own, and we know lots of wonderful tutors. And then if you're not able to get all the supports you need from the particular college that you've selected, maybe you've chosen that college because it's the closest to home, or it's the least expensive, or it really has the major that you want, or the vibe that you want, or you're an athlete and that's where you got recruited. Well, you can still get support outside of the college. You can hire your own executive function coach, even if that isn't a service available at the college. You can get your own therapist, your own medication prescriber. There are comprehensive support programs like the learning support programs I described, but there are ones that are freestanding, run by private companies that you can hire to get support that is not available at the college. Or this is the most sort of expensive and maybe robust or wraparound program, a residential program where the student would live at the college and live at the program with other students who are getting support and staffing that's typically around the clock, and attend a nearby college. So as you might imagine, the residential support program is not really an option for every single, of the 4,000 plus colleges, but there are ones available around the country, everywhere from California to Florida, where you can, again, live at the program and attend a nearby college. Typically, these are expensive. They're often paid for by families, but sometimes there are state benefits like vocational rehab that will help pay for some of the fees that students are encountering. I surveyed families to see particularly on a Facebook group to get a sense of what are the challenges that they perceive in the college application process. And over 70 parents responded, and the top challenges that they cited for their neurodivergent students are finding the right support in college, which of course we help with, selecting colleges to apply to, writing essays, time management, and handling the amount of work involved in the application process. Again, that's all stuff that we help with. So we sort of take a lot of the stress and burden off of students through the college application process. What about selecting colleges? What do parents think are the most important factors? Well, the top four that they cited were the majors, the availability of executive functioning or academic support, the college vibe or the college culture, and the quality of disability services. So really, two of the four involve support, disability support. And again, there you can access our link, our database of supportive colleges. So I also asked parents, what do you feel are the most important resources once students get to college? And the top ones, the top three that they cited were disability services, academic coaching, and an autism support program or a learning support program. So no surprise there that support specifically targeted to neurodivergent students or students with disabilities were the top factors the top resources that they named. But we encourage students to become familiar with all of the resources available. I mentioned a number of them before. There might also be clubs that are relevant, like a mental health club such as Active Minds. Students can form their own study groups to help them be successful in class. And of course, disability services, got to keep mentioning that because that is so important that students sign up for whatever accommodations they may be eligible for and work with disability staff that are experts in helping students be successful. What about the question of whether students should disclose a diagnosis when applying to college? That QR code links to a blog post I wrote on this topic. I've also presented webinars on this topic. So the key things to remember as far as disclosure are, number one, colleges don't ask about disability when you're applying. So it is completely optional. If students want to disclose, they can, but it's not going to be asked. So colleges will not know unless students disclose that. Number two, there's no reason to think that it's going to help or hurt. So if you're worried that it's going to hurt by disclosing, or you think it's going to give you some sort of edge by disclosing, there's no evidence for that being the case across the board. There's no quote, and what I mean is there's no edge, there's no quota for disabled students. They're not trying to, recruit a certain number of disabled students. But on the flip side, colleges can't discriminate against you for being disabled, so it shouldn't hurt you either. That being said, if there is something that you feel merits explanation on your transcript or in your application, there is a section on the Common App. We call it the additional information section, where students can explain any number of things, such as why were their grades lower a certain year, maybe, or why did they go up at a certain point, maybe because they went on medication for ADHD and they finally were better able to focus. Why are there certain courses that were not on the transcript, like a student who didn't take a foreign language because they had a disability waiver, or maybe a student who was away from high school for mental health reasons and then came back at a later point. So if there's something irregular or unusual about on the transcript, disclosure can help colleges kind of make sense of what's going on and not have to fill in the blanks on their own. In addition to that type of disclosure, there's also what I call identity-focused disclosure, where students who see their neurodivergence or their disability as a key central part of their identity and they want to share it with colleges. So you don't have to, but if you want to make that the focus of your essay, or if you're in an interview and you want to share that, you absolutely can. I've had lots of students who did that, who got into, in some cases, every college they applied to. So again, there's no reason to think it's going to hurt you, but it's not just whether you disclose, it's how you disclose. And it's important, if you're going to write about it, that there is sort of a progression or arc that shows your strengths, that shows your development. And those essays can be really powerful and really help students if they're well written. And what about once you get accepted to college? So that's another phase in terms of disclosure. You have to sort of figure out all over again once you're into college if you're going to disclose. Well, if you need accommodations and services, you absolutely have to disclose. And we generally recommend that students do disclose and sign up for accommodations, even if you're not sure you're going to use them, because what if you do need them? You know, you don't sign up for fire insurance on your house when your house is burning down. You get it in advance just in case there's a fire. So just like with accommodations, maybe you'll need that extra time on a test, maybe you won't, but if you have it available to you, then you can use it when the time comes. We encourage students to contact disability services early. So as soon as you sign up, as soon as you enroll and you get that student ID number, you contact disability services and get the ball rolling. You don't want to start working on this when classes have started because you're going to have your hands full already. And at many colleges, getting accommodations in class involves communication with instructors every single term. So not all colleges work that way, but many of them do. So students have to be prepared for that self-advocacy. At some colleges, disability services kind of push out this information to instructors, but that can vary by college. So students have to work on those self-advocacy skills. Conversely, though, this means that they have the option not to seek out accommodations in certain classes. If their accommodations, for example, involve testing and they're taking let's say, an English course that doesn't have any tests, maybe they don't need to disclose the accommodation to that particular instructor. So what's the big picture is, the main takeaways: think about college readiness while you're still in high school, work on your skills while you're still in high school, your self-advocacy, your time management, etc., and develop some sort of plan after high school to get the support that you need. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate your watching this video. Bye.